Hi there, and welcome to The Salted Pepper, where we cook for real life using real food and we keep it real simple. And today I'm going to show you how to make a very simple pot roast in the Ninja Foodi indoor grill. So this takes a little bit more time than if you were going to make my other pot roast recipe, which is in the Ninja Foodi pressure cooker and air crisper, but the results are incredible. So if you have the Ninja Foodi grill, I urge you to give this a try when you have about 6 hours to make it, because that's how long it's going to take. But it's really easy and you don't have to check on it a whole lot, so that helps. All right, the first thing we're going to do is add in 2 tablespoons of avocado oil. You could use whatever oil you like. I use the avocado oil because olive oil can tend to smoke when you use it in the grill. So although olive oil is my first choice, I'm using the avocado oil that's recommended by Shark Ninja. And there's a couple other oils that you can use that have a higher smoke point that you could use in the indoor grill. All right, so we're gonna get this preheated with just the oil in, and we're gonna preheat on the grill on the medium, so that's about 500. You could even preheat it on the roast at 500. It really won't matter, but either one is fine. We just wanna preheat, we wanna get that oil nice and hot. All right, so now my seasoning blend is very, very simple. It's 2 teaspoons of fine grind sea salt, 2 teaspoons of thyme leaves that are dried, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, and 1/2 teaspoon of red pepper flakes, which are totally optional, but it does not make this dish spicy, but it does add a really nice flavor. So I'm gonna pour those into a bigger bowl. Oh, and 1 teaspoon of black pepper, I forgot that. And of course, all my written recipes are on my website and I link to them in the video description. All right, let's mix this up. And I've got my onion. This is a Vidalia onion. I'm only using 1. You could use 2, you could use 3. That doesn't matter, but I'm only using 1 today. And I've already got that just sort of sliced up into large slices. And we'll put that in just a minute after our oil heats. So for now, I'll set that over here. And to make things easier, I'm just gonna bring this up here. Now what you wanna do with your chuck roast, and let me talk about the meat for a minute. This is definitely a chuck roast. I recommend getting a chuck roast when you wanna make a pot roast. It's gonna give you the best results. You can do this recipe with other types of meat, but I have not tested them, so I can't tell you if this timing will work exactly. Now this chuck roast is about 4 pounds. I think it's 3 pounds, 10 ounces, so it's about 4 pounds. But any size will work because it's more about the thickness. So you're gonna be fine if you have a smaller one. As long as it is about 2.5 inches thick, you're gonna be fine. If it's not as thick as mine, which is probably about 2 to 2.5 inches, if it's thinner, then your time is going to be less, and just adjust accordingly. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and sprinkle this on. And then rub it in. Flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. Just gonna dump all that on. All right, looks good. Anything left over, I'm just gonna put on there. All right, now we just wait for the grill to preheat, and then we will sear this on the grill setting or on the high bake roast, that would be fine too, for 5 minutes per side. We'll add in some beef stock, and then we will get our pot roast roasting up in the Ninja Foodi Grill. All right, so I think we just have about a minute or 2 left to preheat the grill, and then we'll get to searing our chuck roast. But I wanted to talk about vegetables because now a chuck roast is low carb, okay? So you could make this if you're on a low carb diet. But I wanted to take it a step further and make the gravy low carb, make the vegetables that usually go along with a pot roast low carb, and of course, carrots and potatoes are not low carb. There it goes, it says add food. We'll do that in just 1 second. they're not low carb, okay? So I had to come up with some different types of vegetables that we could use that would give the same feel as if we were eating carrots and potatoes. So stick around because these vegetables might surprise you. All right, so the first thing now, we've got this oil really hot, no smoking, okay? So that is a good thing, no smoking from the grill. And we're just gonna lay this in here and hear it sizzle and put it down. And we can stay right on here on the medium, or you could go to high grill is fine. This part doesn't really matter as long as it's hot. I'll go ahead and go to the high grill and hit the start button. It defaults to 10 minutes, that's fine because we're gonna do 5 minutes on each side. All right, so it's been 5 minutes on the one side, and now I'm gonna go ahead and open up the lid here and flip it. Now, because of the position of my grill, I need a little help, so I'm gonna grab these meat tongs here because I'm too close to that, and you can burn yourself on that. And this is a big piece of meat, so there we go. All right, so we're gonna flip that over and go back down on high grill for another 5 minutes. Oh, and it's good time to add in the onions. I'll just add those in. You could also add in whole garlic cloves or even some minced garlic. That would be delicious. I can't wait to share with you the vegetables though. That's really kind of exciting. And they were absolutely delicious. And then how I make the gravy, that is just really amazing. And the flavors are so good. All right, so we're coming up on the last few seconds of our total 10-minute sear, which was 5 minutes on each side. Now I'm gonna add in some beef stock. Now this is 4 cups, but I'm only gonna add in 2 right now. And that's because we're gonna save the other 2 because we're gonna mix it with an ingredient to make our gravy, and we're gonna pour that in about 3 hours. All right, so there we go. Now let's go ahead and just put in about 2 cups. There we go, that looks good. All right, so now what we wanna do is get this on a low roast. So you're going to select the roast button. We're gonna take the temperature all the way down to 250, and we're gonna take the time all the way up to 3 hours. All right, and hit the start button. And it's gonna say add food right away, but if for some reason it had cooled down, I believe you can just hit the roast button again and it will start back up. It'll avoid that preheating. But I'll just open and close the lid and take care of it. So now for 3 hours, you don't need to worry about it. It will do its thing. You could flip it if you wanted to. So if you're like me and you like to check on your food more frequently, you can give it a flip in about an hour or so. Or you could just leave it be. It will be just fine. And then in 3 hours, we'll come back, we'll make up our gravy, we'll add in the vegetables, and we will go another 2 to 3 hours. That will be dependent on your roast. So, mine might take 5 hours, yours might take 6. I might like mine not quite as pull apart. You might like yours completely melting apart. So you can adjust your time to how you like your roast done. You're gonna be amazed though at how beautiful this turns out. All right, so it's been about 2.5 hours, just a little over. And what I noticed as I was flipping is that this roast is cooking a little bit faster. So it is now time to put in the rest of the vegetables. So we're gonna open it up. It looks gorgeous. Now, I don't know exactly what you can see, but if you think it's burnt, it is not. I promise you, it is not burnt. And I'll flip it over so you can see. Because I was just about to flip it when I kind of thought, oh, you know what, this is getting done a little bit faster. So that's why I flip it a couple times during the initial 3 hours, is just to get this crust built on both sides, because that adds so much flavor, let me tell you. All right, but I'm gonna take it out now because we're gonna make some gravy. So I'm gonna share that with you, how I make this low carb gravy. So I'm gonna take this out on my cutting board and I'm actually gonna slice it. Just one little piece, because I want you to know that it's done. You can eat it. It is 189 degrees, but it may not be as tender as you want. Some people like to slice their beef and have it a little bit chewier if you will. My husband is one of those people. This would be how he would want it. And then other people like it completely falling apart. And that's why we're gonna go ahead and go that extra time to get it falling apart. All right. If you liked your meat like this, okay, I'll turn it over. That's so pretty. If you liked your meat like this and not falling apart, I would put your vegetables in after the first hour. Make your gravy if you're gonna make it, because that's optional, of course, and then put your vegetables in. But if you like your pot roast falling apart, do it the way that I'm doing. So go 2.5 to 3 hours, and I'm actually gonna close this so we don't lose all of our heat while I talk. Then do it for the 2.5 hours and then make your gravy. If you wanted to make gravy after the fact, don't use what I'm using. This, you really need to cook it to get the taste out. And that is because I'm using coconut flour. So I'll just give that up right now. So I've got 1/2 cup of coconut flour in this jar. I'm gonna mix it with the beef broth and we're gonna make the gravy and I'll pour it in. But first, before we do that, let's go ahead and cut a piece here. All right, let's cut it right here. Oh, it looks good. Now, I like mine more falling apart, but I'm gonna taste this anyway. I'll save that for Jeff because he likes it this way. The flavor is amazing. Not done enough for me. And sorry to talk with my mouth full. Now, I'm gonna do something else though real quick. The grain is going this way. Let's see what happens. This is awful big right now. It was good to get it out, but it's a little bit bigger than what I would ordinarily use. Let's see if I got some across the grain. See if that helps. Let me take this little teeny tiny bit here and see if that helps some. Oh yeah, that definitely makes a huge difference. But still, for most people, this is not how you want your pot roast. So let's go ahead and get the gravy made. Then we'll talk about the vegetables I'm using and we'll get it all in, and it will go in for another 2 to 3 hours. And that will just be based on how you like your vegetables and your meat cooked. 1/2 cup of flour. You don't have to do it this way. You could use, any kind of a blender. You could probably whisk it in. That would be fine. I just find this to be really easy to do. And this is the remaining 2 cups of beef broth. I tried to do this with just 1 cup of beef broth, but what happened is coconut flour is so absorbent that it became a paste in here, which is fine. It worked. I just scooped it out, but it got really thick really fast. It kind of was cool, but I think the two cups to the 1/2 cup coconut flour works better. Hopefully I can get all that off the sides there by just shaking. We don't need to add seasonings. We've got plenty of seasonings in there already. Got one little stubborn area. More than one way to do something. It's right down there. So there's one little area that was not mixing in. All right, so I don't recommend doing this with almond flour. You will get very, very gritty gravy. This is gonna be a tad gritty, but the longer it cooked, the better it got. So I think this is a real viable substitute if you wanna cut down on your carbs. And I'm gonna talk about the difference between this pot roast versus my other recipe for a pot roast, which is in the Ninja Foodi, and then I'll link to that right up there for you guys in case you want to check that out, because the difference in the carb count is unbelievable. All right, so let's go ahead and go in here, pour this in. Now, because we already mixed it up, I don't even need to whisk it in here. I'm just gonna kind of move it around like that. All right, that looks really good. All right, let's get our meat back in. And then we'll get our veggies in. Let me put it on that side this time. All right, so what I have for the vegetables is a half of a head of cabbage. You could use up to a full head of cabbage, just depending on how much you could fit in here. You don't want to go too close to the heating element though. So you want it to be kind of down, even underneath the roast would be fine. But I'm using a half of a head and about a half of a head of a large cauliflower. So this could be a head of a small cauliflower or half of a larger one. And I'm doing it this way because number one, I really love cauliflower and I like it more than cabbage. So I know I'm probably gonna eat more of the cauliflower than the cabbage. And also we're not adding in a whole ton because we will take half of this and turn it into shredded beef tacos for another meal. So that's a great way to use up leftover pot roast. If you're cooking for just a few people and you have it left over, then just shred it up, add some Mexican seasonings, and make a different meal out of it. It's perfect. All right, so I am leaving these in fairly large chunks because I want them to roast, of course, but I also kind of want them to give me like a potato feel when I bite into them. So these are my potatoes, and I'm just gonna put them down into the gravy. See, nice and big. Now, of course, this recipe will work with regular flour. It will work with regular vegetables that you normally put in, which would be the potatoes and carrots, and you could add more onions, you could add mushrooms. In fact, I tested the recipe with mushrooms and I will be adding that to the written recipe because it was so delicious. The mushrooms turn out amazing, but I used them all up and I could not find them at the grocery store. So we make do, right? All right, then I'm just gonna nestle these down in here. And they will shrink as they cook, so you don't have to be exact. It's fine. It's a low heat. We're still going on 250. And I'll even put them right over here, and then I will turn them around periodically throughout the next couple of hours. All right, that looks good. And now I'm just gonna go ahead and lower this, and we're gonna take our time, back up. All right. There we go. So we'll be back in 2 hours and we'll see how it's coming along. And during those 2 hours, I am gonna flip things over, okay? All right, so we are just about finished up on the 5th hour. We went for 3 hours with just the meat in, and then we put the vegetables in and went another 2 hours. Now I've been flipping probably every 40 minutes or so, just whenever I walk by. The smell is amazing. I mean, it just smells so good. So let's see what we got. Alrighty. Looks good, looks good. So you can see that some of the gravy is kind of like stuck on the top. That's no problem. It looks beautiful. Now I think it could actually go a little bit longer, but I'm not gonna do that today. So you could probably put it in for another 30 minutes. See how that connective tissue isn't quite falling apart? A lot of people will want that totally rendered, and so it's really falling apart. But for me, this is gonna be just fine. All right, now let's get these little veggies out of here. So they don't look as good as potatoes and carrots, but you know what? They taste amazing. So I'm just gonna throw in fact, I'll get another utensil here, that'll be easier. So I'm just gonna throw them around the roast here. I've got I almost said carrots. I've got my cabbage and my cauliflower. Let's see, I don't think my platter's really big enough, honestly, for all this, but we will make do. Looks really good. I was so shocked. In fact, I'll leave that in there. We don't need all that out. I was very shocked at how delicious the cauliflower and the cabbage both were in this gravy. I mean, Jeff and I both were like, wow, this is good. And in a minute, I'm going to tell you the difference in the carb count because that is astounding to me. All right, so let's go ahead and do the fork test, which is one of the ways, is it fork tender, is it gonna fall apart? Let's see, because like I said, I think it could go a little bit longer. But it's pretty good. I mean, it's pretty good. I would probably go another 30 minutes or so, but honestly, I can pull it out. It's just fine. The crust on the outside is absolutely delicious. So please do not mistake that for it being burnt. It is not. It is nicely, what would I say? caramelized maybe, but I think there's another word for it. But anyway, it's absolutely delicious. All right, let's get a cauliflower here and some of the cabbage. Now, the one thing that I do like about doing this in the grill is that some of the cabbage gets a little bit like crispy on the edges from, there you can see it right there, from the heat. And I love that because I think it adds so much flavor. So I was really pleased. And this one you can see here, let me show you this one, because this one really got a lot of it. And you could make them really crunchy too. If you left it on top, you know, of the beef, if you wanted them really crunchy. But every once in a while, dunk them down or they'll get so crispy that they'll start to fly up into the fan. I've had that happen. So I just turn them around, you know, whenever I'm flipping the meat. All right, let's get some of this gravy, which is thickened up nicely. I honestly did not have very high hopes for gravy that was made with coconut flour because I'm not a huge fan of coconut flour. Love coconuts, but there's something about cooking, you know, like baking or making other things with coconut flour that I've just never been a fan of. But if you cook it, it takes all that flavor away, and it was really just amazing when Jeff and I tested the recipe. All right, let me get a knife here just so I can cut up this cabbage a little bit. Let's taste the cabbage. Now for me, that is perfect. It is not too soft. I like my vegetables on the firmer side. The meat could go another 30 minutes, so could the vegetables. So if you like your vegetables a little bit softer, just keep it in for another 30 to 60 minutes, really. I did one roast for 6 hours, and it was fine. So this is not something it's done, you know, it's gonna burn. You can keep cooking it. All right, let's see. Now these are supposed to, this cauliflower is supposed to like give you the feel of a potato. So let's see how that works. You know what? That does satisfy me for a potato. Does it taste like a potato? No, not really. The texture is a little bit firmer than a soft potato, but I happen to like it. This works for me if I want to eat low carb, so I'm really happy. Now, for the star of the show, because of course, you can change up the vegetables. You could do whatever you want and still keep the same times and temperatures and things like that. So the most important part is the meat. So let me get an inside piece here. Get a little smaller. Put it in that gravy. The flavor is amazing. Really, really good. And it is tender. This definitely satisfies my low carb craving for a pot roast with vegetables. And like I said before, you could throw in whatever you want and you can cook your meat a little bit longer. In the recipe, I'm probably gonna call for 5.5 to 6 hour cook. But you know, again, you use your judgment, you check it when it's ready for you, to your liking, you take it out, you eat it, and you enjoy it. Now for the best part. How many carbs is this meal? Serving 6 people, okay? And obviously we would have some more cabbage and cauliflower and stuff for 6 people. But serving 6 people, how many carbs are in this versus in my original pot roast recipe that calls for potatoes and carrots and a traditional flour gravy? Well, that recipe has 49 grams of carbs per serving, and this one comes in at 16. So that is incredible. Might end up being like maybe 18 or more once I add in the extra vegetables, but really it is more than half the amount of carbs, and it is delicious. So I hope you give this one a try, whether you do it the traditional way or whether you do it the low carb way. They're both gonna be wonderful, and enjoy your pot roast in your Ninja Foodi Grill.